problems in the world, and we can be the solutions for them. We have to look at them. We have to think about it. We've got to be compassionate. We got to solve these things. And we also need to go have some damn fun.
Welcome to the Transcend Health Solutions Podcast, your go-to source for insightful discussions on ketamine-assisted psychotherapy and all things mental health. Join us as we explore innovative treatments, share expert interviews, and offer practical tips to help you navigate your mental health journey. Tune in and discover how you can transcend the challenges and embrace a healthier, happier life.
Welcome to the Transcend Health Solutions Podcast. We're here with the Director of Operations, Will Ratliff, commencing with Operation Pod God.
Operation Pod God underway.
I don't know if we can actually reveal our operation names. No, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Tim Geltz. I'm an LPCA here, Certified Ketamine-Assisted Psychotherapist at Transcend. And today we were planning on talking about the state of the world, the perception of the state of the world, and how it affects mental health.
Basically, the big question being related to a trend that we're seeing in the clinic that oftentimes when we're processing with people, senses of hopelessness and just their projection into the future, the general theme is the world has gone to shit. It's all fucked. It's not going to get better. There's no point in contributing to society or otherwise. And we're doomed. Sky has fallen.
And I would say that we're seeing this most in teens.
Yeah.
There's this distinct hopelessness and this feeling of like, this isn't even worth sticking around for. And I think we're going to kind of make the case today that one, it is worth sticking around for. And I want to largely focus on not exactly why. I do think the data about the state of the world is really important if we're actually looking at trends of all of these different metrics that establish what a good life is and like good things for society. I think all of this data is super important. But I think a really important point is that even when things were worse in the past, let's take it all the way back to caveman times, and we're literally fighting for survival all the time, people found the will to fight for survival. Even when things were the worst, if we could conceptualize such a thing, there was the will to live, and it was worth it to do it.
So what's the difference between then and now? Because I agree completely that actually the world has been through tougher times by landslides than we're currently going through right now.
Yeah.
So is it the case that, in the past when we were going through major hardships, challenging times, people didn't seem to interpret it as it's all doomed, but just we're in a current hardship that will move through in time. We just got to keep going. And kind of the resiliency of the human spirit was more prominent than now, where people are just like, no, lay down and die. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us can really speak to like what people actually thought. I'm sure there were people in the past that like thought things were doomed. I mean, we can look at different times when war was completely rampant around the world, and you could argue that that is kind of the case now, and people probably felt like it was doomed. But in terms of like the difference between then and now is I do think objectively in a lot of ways things in society and civilization are better. It doesn't feel that way though, because if it bleeds, it leads. We got to address the elephant in the room rather immediately, that our media environment is rampant everywhere. It is ubiquitous. We have access to it more than we ever did before. The kind of like energy of it is ramped all the way up to try to get every morsel of our attention out of it. Obviously, I'm referring to social media, that all of these things are geared towards the things that are going to draw the most attention. And human beings are wired in a way, and it makes sense as to why they would be, that we pay more attention to negative things than to positive things, the whole negativity bias. And it makes sense. It makes sense because the threat of danger is greater than the benefit of goodness a lot of the time. You know, if we take this back to like evolutionary principles, then like, yes, you want to pay more attention to the tiger behind the bush than you do to the beautiful sunset, because you're not going to be able to enjoy the sunset if the tiger gets you. So naturally, our attention going towards these dangers is going to be like a higher valence. It's going to receive more attention in our mind. And so all of these algorithms, this is a very long-winded way of saying that all of the algorithms and everything that are operating to attract our attention are going to tune themselves to the things that attract our attention most, which is carnage and destruction and all of these things worth being scared of. Meanwhile, if you just get off social media and go outside and hang out with your friends, it is a beautiful day. There is air to breathe. Like, let's have some gratitude for the air to breathe. Like, this is fantastic. We have like phenomenal transportation to get to a lot of places. And there are so many things to actually list of like what is worth sticking around for and things to be grateful for. And there are a lot of things in our culture and our environment right now that make it difficult for people to make themselves aware of things worth being grateful for.
You know, it's interesting that we blame the algorithms a little bit, though, because if you started a new social media profile and you typed in puppies and you typed in puppies and puppies and puppies, the only thing that algorithm is ever going to dish out to you is puppies. And they might even try every now and then to throw in some kind of polarized thing, you know, that would, you know, kind of be a little inciting. And when you don't respond to it and you go to the next puppy, it stops. It goes, this person just wants puppies. So I think it's actually kind of interesting that we tend to blame an algorithm that is largely just giving me more of what I actually paid attention to. And so I do think there is some, you know, a little bit of conscious choice that we are actually selecting for this.
Yeah.
Every time that you decide to, first thing in the morning, open up a news app, you are throwing a grenade into your day on purpose. You're making that conscious choice, even though you know that the odds that you open that app up and you spend 10, 20 minutes on it and you leave that experience feeling better are nearly zero. You make the conscious choice to keep that app on your phone and to do it in the time of the day you're most susceptible to it, you know, actually wrecking your entire mood. And we do it day after day. And so why is it that we make that conscious choice, even though there's a part of us that knows better, we know exactly what it will do?
I think you draw a really interesting distinction here that I don't think that all of it is conscious. Like, I completely agree that we do need kind of more conscious engagement with these things and like recognition within ourselves of, say, like, yeah, if I read the news first thing in the morning and that is the first piece of information that affects my mentality of the day, that's bad news, to make a pun. I don't think all of it is totally conscious, though, because I think a lot of the way that these things work is like, even if someone is extremely conscious about getting on and I just want to see puppies. I just want to see puppies. It's all I want to see. These things will test it out. It'll throw a little recommended post in front of you and go like, well, what about this? Are you interested in this too? And this is what I mean of like there is an unconscious negativity bias within all of us that feels that if there is something to be scared of, we actually do need to pay attention to it. And so naturally, our attention will be shaped in ways that we are unaware of because of the social media algorithms and everything. And yeah, I don't want to throw all the social media algorithms, say like, this is the one bane of our existence. Because I think that, to your point again, we all do have a responsibility for our own information diet. And I think that that term in particular, information diet, should be way more prominent in the typical social lexicon, such that people do go, okay, I'm looking at this thing, this is kind of unsettling. Is this good for me mentally right now? And sure, sometimes maybe we do need to take in some bad news. I do kind of agree that there's like some degree of like social responsibility to be somewhat informed of like what's going on in the world, but not to the point where it feels like this whole reality and living as a human on Earth is doomed and hopeless, because that is happening. I have worked with people, I currently work with people, that this is actually a pretty prominent thing in their lives, that they are experiencing hopelessness to the degree of suicidality over the fact that this whole project of civilization is doomed, the sky is falling, the world is ending, so what's worth sticking around for? And I just want to make the simple argument that even as messed up as things may be, it's all still worth it. It's actually all worth it. Everything is worth it. It's worth sticking around for. It's worth finding the things that do bring joy. It's worth going out and figuring out how to have fun. It's worth paying attention to the suffering in the world and trying to alleviate it, including your own. And if people are waking up, and I'm guilty of this too, I wake up and take in some media, and I've gotten a lot better about it and going like, oh, this is not good for me right now. Especially the morning. Your mind is just so supple in the morning. Let's avoid
But if I challenge
taking
the
in too
average
much,
person,
yeah.
right? So if I just took 5 people at random and said, hey, tomorrow, just don't absorb any media until the evening.
Yeah.
Most people would not be able to be successful in that challenge.
Right, and this is
They
what I
would
mean.
day after day select for that, like an addiction.
Yeah.
They don't realize how technologically addicted they actually are. The
No,
degree of
and
dopamine
that's
hit
kind
that
of
they
the point.
in fact get from this bad information, that they're actually enjoying receiving this information that is so disturbing to them, at least on some level. And, I made that conscious choice a long time ago to make sure that I'm in a place. So to me, this feels like the social responsibility, right? So I know that I will be a less useful member of society. I will be less productive in the workplace. I will be a worse partner in my relationship. I will be a worse parent to my children if I'm completely disturbed by something first thing in the morning that I absorbed that is outside of my control. That doesn't mean that I don't need to be informed, but the means in which I inform myself, the time in which I do it, and how many of these things that I actually focus on that are completely outside of my control versus within my control robs me of my ability to actually be an effective human on planet Earth. And that's my social responsibility in truth. And so I think that the argument toward, like the philosophical argument that we do have an imperative to actually know what's going on in the world, to me gets actually kind of a little bit overused, because I would agree that we actually have the social imperative to be useful on planet Earth as well. And so if we are doing something that deliberately and we know wrecks our ability to be useful on planet Earth, out of the idea that, well, I must be informed though.
Yeah, sure.
If I were to put the both on the scale, I would say that it's your imperative to stop. You don't currently actually have the capacity to intake that information without decreasing your effectiveness on planet Earth. And therefore, your actual imperative is to stop doing that behavior. Similar to if every single day you went home at the end of the day and you just pounded alcohol to the point that you couldn't be, effective in your relationship or your parent or otherwise,
Yeah, sure.
You could say, well, it's imperative that I relax at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
that I can get up tomorrow. Well, the reality is what this pattern actually looks like for you is you're not, able to get to your responsibilities. And so
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
we're greatly over leveraging the social responsibility to know what's going on in the world. That way we might be able to impact change on the things that are within our
Mhm.
control. And actually, the real world impact is, if we actually looked at what most people's social media use is, it doesn't help them to figure out ways in which they can actually leverage their unique abilities to impact change in the world, or have greater relationships, or have greater
Yeah,
social connectedness.
I think. Well, I I agree wholeheartedly, and I think the last thing you said there of like, as you were describing that, I was thinking a lot about, we're two guys in like mid to late 30s talking about this, and a lot of the clients that I was talking about that are struggling with their perception of the world, or well, struggling with their mental health, partly due to their perception of the world. I think largely due to social media. Um, it's a bit of a different situation for a really young person in this world right now. There's this whole process of like, for us, we've largely landed on what we care about in the world, what we do want to contribute. This is an open question for teens, especially. They're trying to figure out what it is that they want to contribute to the world, even like what is going on in this world for me to begin to figure out how I want to contribute to it. And the natural way to do that is to take the means available to learn about the world. And we have these magic rectangles in our pockets that offer everything that you could possibly want to know about it, supposedly. I think there's a really big gap in one, what we're talking about here. I think this needs to be a lesson with these phones in our pocket, that they have their risks as well. They're a lot more subtle. You made the comparison to excessive alcohol use. There is such a thing as excessive phone use, excessive technology use, and the drawbacks and the negative effects are a lot more subtle. They probably take quite a bit longer to like really seep all the way into your life in such a way that you have to recognize that there's an issue with it. But to come back to my point of, for teens especially, who are trying to orient themselves in the world, learn about the world, to try to figure out what they want to do in the world, it's kind of a tough spot right now in a lot of ways, because I don't think there is a lot of it. It's becoming more prominent, but there isn't a lot of education around taking in this much media is actually like pretty detrimental in a lot of ways. And if we just look at like negativity versus positivity in media, I mean, it's obviously slanted largely negative. And so, yeah, I think that, as you're saying, this responsibility, the social responsibility to learn about the world and take in media and know what's going on, I certainly wouldn't say that that is more important than an individual's mental health, because that is the scale that I'm imagining right now, because they influence each other.
Yeah. Since we were being a real dick to our future self when we decided to make that choice to actually pop the app open, or keep the app on your phone, because hey, I'm kind of a creature of habit. Probably 60% of the things that I do in a given day are actually just completely habitual. They're not really out of conscious choice.
Yeah, same.
This graph really kind of spelled out, and I'll try to put it in the video, the changes and contributing factors of
I remember you showing this one in the chat.
decline. So the graph looks at, of the things that were contributing to mental health issues over time, between starting in the 1980s to current day. It makes it incredibly evident that even though there's been a rise in addiction, a rise in deaths of despair, rise in loneliness, rise in a number of factors that we weren't dealing with to the same degree in the 80s and 90s, such as a reduction in violent crime, a reduction in infant mortality, maternal mortality, all of these types of incredibly distressing and difficult human things that we deal with in the human experience. This graph makes it obvious that the increase in challenges with mental health was directly related to the increased use of social media and technology.
Yeah, you can see in this graph
Greater than
everything's
any other
pretty
factor.
consistent. Social media coming in hot.
Yeah,
It's
even though there's more loneliness, it's still less of a percentage of the factors that can overall contribute to the decline in mental health in modern day than social media. Social media outpaced everything. And so what social media apps do you have on your phone, Tim?
I've got really just Instagram. If you consider YouTube social media, that's on there too. I've been very intentional about not getting TikTok. I fell off of Facebook a long time ago because I actually remember this instance where I was really lonely at home. And then I kind of like hopped on Facebook and like chatted with a few people or something. And I have the language for this now that I kind of got a bit of a dopamine hit. It felt good. And then it just fell off immediately. And I felt more lonely. And it just dawned on me of like, what am I doing to myself? So I had to get rid of it. It's pretty tough in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, I just talked about how it was a really healthy choice for me to get rid of Facebook, but I've still got Instagram. What's going on there? And there's so many different ways to rope people in. I'm kind of in this situation where like I'm involved in different communities that communicate primarily through Instagram. Yeah. And so it's really helpful for me to stay on Instagram so that I can participate in the communication in these communities. And I get inundated with all sorts of stuff that is not helpful on Instagram.
What percentage though? So like, I'm really glad I was on Instagram. I was able to go to that social gathering I wouldn't have known about because I was on Instagram compared to the amount of times that I'm actually like, that was not a positive 20 minutes I just spent with that app.
Again, like I want to throw in that like we're talking about this from a perspective of like, all right, I'm going to open this thing up. There's some risks to this. Beware. And I think that needs to be kind of like where the psychoeducation happens. Because my approach to Instagram has changed quite a bit, where I have long days sometimes. My mind is extremely active, and then I go home, and it is somewhat relieving to doom scroll a little bit. I want to avoid the doom part of it though. So the tactic that I've taken is like, I know what I'm looking for. It's not puppies or skateboarding or woodworking or highlining or whatever it is, or like, it's not the content thing. I'm looking for something that like piqued my interest. So when I scroll and I find something and I get like a good laugh out of it, or I get something like it really spurred some thought, I go, okay, I got the thing. Now put it away. Because that's how these things are designed to like, oh, look, you can get this. Keep scrolling to get more. And it doesn't work like that. Like, even if I did find the next thing that was as funny or as interesting, it's not going to feel that way because that's the way the brain works. So I get my fill, I go like, that was actually satisfying. Now I'm going to put this away and go do something else.
Essentially over time is like intentional use. And that's the question always for me, is how many people are actually using it intentionally. It's so incredibly rare to see anybody who actually knows how to do that.
Sure.
For me, I don't have any social media. I've never been on any social media. And so I've experienced life from a completely different perspective than most of the people that I know. And so when various things were happening, Black Lives Matter movement was happening, we had a lot of patients coming in incredibly outraged. I didn't know what was happening because I wasn't on social media. I didn't see the footage of George Floyd. I didn't get enticed by it. So all of a sudden I hear about this thing that's happening in the world. And I wasn't plugged into the news or anything else. And so I researched it. And I was like, okay, these are the actual numbers of what we're looking at around this issue.
Mm.
And I felt like just immediately able to just be in an objective view of this, of like, okay, you know, in my mind, like what would probably help or produce change around, you know, this issue, et cetera. Like, this is where we're at. What is racism looking like over the course of time? You know, where are we at in the spectrum of, you know, this problem continuing to be a problem, or escalating or declining, or whatever it may be? And a total objective view didn't lead to as much outrage as a lot of people experienced. And so I was watching people, you know, I had patients that were saying, you know, I'm afraid to come to the clinic because I know that I'll be pulled over on the way to the clinic, dragged out of my car, and beaten to death. And having to talk to them about, you know, hey, look, you know, it'll probably be a safe trip to the clinic, you know, chances are, you know, that statistically speaking, but they weren't interested in the objective data. And so I know that I view the world a lot different because I've been outside of, you know, the polarized political narratives, outside of the incredibly enticing imagery that is like jump clipped to, you know, really, really get you, you know, highly angry or anything else. And I've just not exposed myself to that over the course of my life. And I always get curious of why other people are not willing to maybe take that jump to delete one of those apps, or at least set a time limit on the app, or maybe just access it on the desktop instead of the computer so you're not scrolling it. For me, it's very easy to say, like, why don't you just do this? Because it's almost like I never drank alcohol. And I'm just like, why are you having a hard time with alcohol? To someone who's been drinking, you know, and grew up in a culture of it, and etc. else. And it's like, well, it's easy for me to say. I just never really dabbled in it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that is like the main point of like why it's difficult to put these things down is like nobody ever makes a change until they recognize there's a problem. And so actually talking to somebody about like, hey, I'm kind of noticing like the way you're spending so much time on Facebook is like affecting the way you're thinking about things, and it's not going to feel like that to the person who's spending a lot of time on Facebook. And I think you touched on something here that's important to note of the outrage component, to put even more generally, just the heightened emotional component, because that is what drives engagement more than anything. What also happens when people are in a heightened emotional state is their executive function goes way, way down. And so it's kind of a tough needle to thread sometimes, where like, if I'm talking to somebody who is really feeling deeply emotional about, say, the state of the world, and I want to like make this objective argument about the state of the world, even if what I'm saying is true, it doesn't matter to the person that I'm talking to. We kind of have to address the emotional state first, so that we can be in a critical thinking, higher executive function state to even begin looking objectively at data. Because these things are like, they're driven off of things worth caring about. Like, there is this problem in our society, we need to address it. And people are pretty naturally compassionate. And so they're going to look at this big problem in society and all of the people that are being affected by it, supposedly being affected by it, allegedly being affected by it, objectively being affected by it, figuring out how they want to look at it and go, I need to care about this. And it's really disturbing. It's disturbing to see someone or a group of people that is having a hard time, to put it generally. So our heart goes out to them. And we are in this deep emotional state of care, which comes in the form of like fear and anger and outrage and sorrow and hopelessness. And it's quite a slippery slope. And to make the argument to somebody that they should like put social media down when they actually feel like they're getting so much out of it, because it's putting so much like energy into them of like, no, I see all of this going on. I really care about this. How would you possibly argue that I should put this thing away because I know what's happening in the world. I care about these things, which is a fair point. It's a tougher argument to make for whatever reason, that it's at least probably more important to care about yourself. And if you, as you were saying before, like to put yourself in a position that you can be the best father, the best friend, the best citizen, the best, go down the list, just show up the best in the world. This is kind of the tough argument to make, that like, in order to do that, you have to take care of yourself, and to recognize that, say, like a lot of media intake that is heavily leaned negative, isn't setting you up to be the best person that you can be in life, then it's
I think we need to call it a technology addiction. I think people are really hesitant to actually use that term. And I remember the first time I even heard technology addiction as a term, I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's so rampant that people will be grossly addicted to technology and not even be able to see it, because everyone in their family is too, and everyone they know is as well. And it's just a whole culture of it. And, you know, so there's that one, actually being able to look at it and say, no, I am addicted to this, because the kind of, this does fit the definition of addiction, that, you know, I know this is going to be bad for me, and for some reason I can't stop myself from doing it.
Well, that's what I mean, though. I think that so many people engage with it not with that mentality going, I know this is going to be bad for me.
Yeah.
Because it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good to like feel something.
Well, there's just enough good in there too. Like, you see one thing that's funny, and then it's like, but if you looked at a percentage of this, it's like, you know, like 0.5% of those posts were actually funny, and everything else just kind of pissed you off, you know?
Yeah.
And it would be like if you had a friend that, you know, you went and saw, and like 99% of the interaction was them just throwing poop at you. And then they landed this funny ass joke right at the end, and you're like, that was worth it.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, no, I don't think I'm going to see that friend again. That's how I would make decisions. But a lot of people continue to see that friend.
No, sure. Well, I want to throw in here too, I think one of the more pernicious things about it is the way that we've been talking about it a lot is that there is a whole ton of negativity, and I think that there is. But a lot of it is, like, even if it is just getting on and looking at puppies, if you spend the majority of your day just looking at puppies all day, that's actually not that helpful either. Mm-hmm. So even if it is just a ton of like positive things that you really do kind of enjoy, I want to look into this more and like really find all the right language for it. But I start feeling this quite a bit, where like, even if I'm farting around on my phone and I'm watching different things that are like kind of interesting, I'm like generally kind of looking for that dopamine hit. I want to find something interesting. And it is stuff that I'm like, it's all in my interest range. But I feel this difference when I'm taking in content versus, say, like in a conversation with somebody, and it's this very organic, dynamic, interactive thing, or even when I'm doing nothing and just like sitting and like enjoying being outside, or like enjoying hanging out with my cat. And I'm honestly not quite sure how to describe it, of like, if our mind is constantly occupied with things that don't arise from it naturally, I think there's something slightly unhealthy in there. Emphasis on if it's always occupied with this, because I like getting on social media sometimes. I like sitting down and watching a movie. But if I sit down and like binge watch something for hours and hours and hours, even if it's something that I like ostensibly enjoy, there's something really not good that happens. It's like the mind actually needs space to just kind of flow as it will. And that whole process is interrupted by consistent media intake or just content intake.
I mean, my suggestions for people are to recognize that, to actually start using that term technology addiction, you know, to recognize what they're actually experiencing. To not compare their use with anybody else's, because everybody's rampant with this issue right now. So the comparison to the norm is not the place to be. It's what's best for your life. Mm-hmm. Then being intentional. So I am getting on this at the right time of day that I know it won't wreck me. I know how long I'm going to engage with it. And so I have a time limit set on this app that will remind me like, hey, okay, 20 minutes went up, whatever it may be. to unfollow, things that are just going to throw, wrenches in the gears of your day. You don't necessarily need to absorb those things. And, the scroll mechanism is a real challenge too. So we really like scrolling, right? So if you're a person who struggles with scrolling, then, like similar to how people use fidget toys, where you engage with social media or news on the desktop, because you actually won't use it for as many minutes, without the scroll mechanism. You're doing this is not nearly as satisfying for whatever reason as with the thumb. And so people tend to use social media less when they're not using it on their phone, when they're engaging with it on a desktop. So you can kind of set these things up where you're more likely to have a successful interaction, where you're actually able to get off of it on the time at which you intended to, but also really realizing the actual impacts of it in your life, and not kind of just comparing it to what everybody else is doing. Because yes, everyone's doing this, and it really is okay to take these apps off your phone. I think a lot of people are extremely hesitant. I don't have any on my phone. And that's okay. My life has not suffered because of this in any way. There's no thing that I don't know about or wasn't, privileged to be a part of or whatever, because I didn't have Instagram on my phone or TikTok or anything else. Every now and then someone will mention a TikTok trend to me that I don't have a fucking clue about. And, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it sounds real stupid. I don't know, like, it's just like, it never, like, because I didn't see the thing, like, it's not really that enticing to me, to be honest. Like, I'm not like, so disappointed.
This is a very common experience working with teens, where being out of the loop and not knowing the slang.
I don't get any FOMO about not knowing that TikTok trend. I just don't. And, I don't know, maybe other people are different than this, but the couple of things I did want to get to real quick. I'm still processing a lot about the death of my friend Toklar, who died of glioblastoma, just recently. But when he first got his diagnosis, he lived for around 1.5 years after he got his diagnosis, was given, a year to live, and lived a little bit longer. One of the first things that happened, used to, I text him and he'd get back to me pretty quickly. And then I texted him shortly after his diagnosis, and like 6 weeks later, he gets back to me. And, he was just like, I get with him, and we meet up or whatever. And he tells me most people don't realize that they're not experiencing reality, but they're just looking through the keyhole, and he was comparing the use of his phone to like staring through the keyhole, looking into what reality really is, when they're using or engaging in social media or whatever it may be. He's like, I want a real interaction. I want to sit down with you and have a conversation. I don't want to text back and forth. I don't want to view something on social media. I want to go see that sunrise for real. And it was instantaneously clear for him, knowing that he only had 1 year left to live, that every single moment he spent on this damn phone was a waste of moments. He wanted to spend time with his kids. He wanted to spend time with his friends. He didn't want to text back and forth with them. He wanted to line up an actual time to sit down and talk and have a beer and talk about some stuff. And it was clear as hell to him. And I've tried to retain a little bit more about remembering that this is a keyhole through reality, but it is not reality. This is not the human experience. This is not being alive. And it looks really similar, but it is nothing but a shadow. And the other little thing that I wanted to say about this too is I have this graph where it looked at all of these issues over time, and then when Facebook, the iPhone, and Instagram came along, right? And so the interesting thing on this graph is it shows trust in media, loneliness, youth depression, and political polarization. The thing that found so interesting about this graph was these things were already on the uptrend before social media came along. The only thing that happened was it accelerated or made it more exponential what was happening. And during Vietnam, people weren't trusting the government, right? But we weren't aware of every little last aspect of how screwed up some of these things were. There's been a lot of periods of time where there were reasons where there was more of that self versus other, more political polarization, which I see as an escalating issue over time, largely driven by social media, when the reality is most people are actually a little bit more in the middle towards most views, get kind of en masse than people would believe. Most people believe that everybody's actually really right or left, but when you actually ask people about very specific issues, they tend to poll and find out people are more in the center around most issues.
I gotta say on that one, a lot of times if you even sit down with someone on either side and they define themselves on either side, most people are still civil because we sit down and we look each other in the eye, and like even if somebody like types up something quite enraged, they're not typically going to say that to someone's face.
Yeah.
And because they won't be put up with, we just don't put up with these things. But I think these are really interesting graphs, and
the other thing was noticing that through time, as loneliness increased, as different challenges in the world came along, what we also saw was that people after social media were more likely to help strangers and were more likely to volunteer their time, were more likely to give charitably, that beneficence actually increased after COVID substantially.
Oh, interesting.
So one of the interesting variables in, I have another one here about beneficence, that happened with social media is actually, remember like the ALS challenge? It's like so many things became aware of like, hey, this is a huge social problem and maybe there's something I can do about this, or maybe I can give to that charity, or maybe I didn't even know that these bears were getting milked for whatever, like it's just like, there's so many things that became an awareness.
Classic milking bears problem.
That jacks with our, view of the world, but also allows us opportunity.
I mean,
to
this
care
is
about
extremely interesting. I hadn't seen these graphs of the rise in beneficence, and I think it's
not
all bad, and it's almost like as information becomes more ubiquitous, it increases all of the aspects of human nature. So if we're going to focus and try to make the increase in beneficence more significant than the increase in loneliness or depression or hopelessness, whatever it is, we've just got to be really conscious about it. I think
mostly focused on social media, which was
mostly focused on
mind-blowing to me.
social media.
But
I want to come
new
back to
outlets
your
for social connection. And go ahead, and then I have a question after.
Okay,
after
well, I wanted to. We've understandably spent a lot of time talking about social media and its influence on individuals and society and culture and everything. But I think the real big point, I think you talked about really effectively with Toklar, you said his name was, that reality is actually incredibly rich with things to enjoy. And if we're texting between somebody, sure, communication is happening, but there's something much more satisfying, even fulfilling about sitting down with a friend and enjoying their company, to actually go see the sunset, to go roll in the grass, to go skateboard, to go actually do jujitsu instead of just think about it in theory, or just so many examples. Just name your interest. That this is the thing that I think is worth most focusing on. I think we had to kind of focus on social media to go like, there's this thing in the way of enjoying experience. And humans, I believe, have and always will have this innate capacity to figure out how to enjoy this thing we call reality and experience it and go do things.
Work.
It does take work.
Process.
It is not a passive process. I genuinely think that it is in some ways a spiritual process of sorts to get to the core and figure out, for me, everything is worth it. That simple statement has taken me a long way. I don't think that is a core truth for every single human, but if we do this logical reductionistic process of like, well, this leads to that, and this is worth it because of that, and this is worth it because of that, we're going to get to some sort of logical rock bottom where there is no clear next implicated truth. There's going to have to be some foundation of some sort of faith. And I'm not speaking religious. If it is religious, more power to you, fine. But there has to be some sort of leap of faith at some point that is going to will an individual to engage, to stay here, to contribute, to find the thing that excites them and makes them interested and want to engage in this reality. I think that is an even longer discussion. Like I said, we had to discuss the social media because it is so getting in the way of
I didn't want it to
that
be as
thing.
big of a primary driver in this conversation, but when I
Yeah.
did all the data, that actually was the major change. So
Yeah.
even though there was an increase in loneliness and less people being able to connect through avenues like decline in the amount of people who attend church, so many different factors, the increase in use of technology via social media was the primary driver in the decrease in mental health over time by a landslide. And so to me, I see deleting some apps, more mindful use of social media, and actually texting a friend to actually get together with them,
Yeah.
being, instead of these artificial interactions that we feel like are doing something but aren't, is kind of primary focal points for actually kind of amending this issue over time. Because this bombshell went off, this new technology, we don't really know how to deal with it. You ever see the Gods Must Be Crazy where the Coke bottle lands with the Aboriginal tribe and like they all just like lose their minds because they don't know what to do with this new technology of a Coke bottle?
Yeah.
It's like this is technology in modern day for us. It's a fantastic parable for like what we're dealing with. But anyway, final question: when you view the future, what makes you feel like contributing back to society? What makes you hopeful about where the hell we're headed? How do you generate that on a given day?
I personally am so happy to answer that question. I do want to preface it again that this is my personal answer. I think that everybody needs to find their root of what they have faith in. For me, I have the deepest faith in nature. Humans are products of nature, and this is it's rather complex, but like it's rather complex and also extremely simple. Like nature will persist no matter what. And if this is just a human perceptual thing or not, I think that beauty is inherent in nature. There is some sort of glorious order that it brings about, somehow like incorporating elements of chaos such that there will be variety and things like this. But I mean, this is like the broadest level thing that I know that nature will persist. I do have faith in humanity as products of nature. But this is a rather highfalutin sort of conception of like what drives me. On the day-to-day, it's my friends' smiling faces. It's seeing them achieve things that they want to, knowing that they are capable, me helping encourage them to see that they are capable. Same thing with my clients and my work. And this is what drives me more than anything, is that there are a lot of problems in the world and we can be the solutions for them. We have to look at them. We have to think about it. We've got to be compassionate. We got to solve these things. And we also need to go have some damn fun. Like the world is always going to be crazy and the trails are not going to get run by themselves. So go run the trails, go highline, go skateboard, go laugh with your friends, have a great dinner, just like savor how comfortable your bed is, have compassion for the people that don't have beds, embrace different lifestyles and imagine like what it could be like for someone who is having an amazing time, and just go have it. This reality is amazing. Like look at this plant right now. It's doing its thing and it's gorgeous. Like there's so many things to appreciate. So if you're having trouble appreciating things, come see us. I don't know what to tell you. Like go see your friends, connect with your family as best you can. And these for me are the things that drive me. I love human connection. I love things. I love building things. There's all sorts of things to be interested in. I can go on forever, so I'll stop.
I agree. I think it's all headed somewhere. I think it's headed somewhere incredibly beautiful. I think any hardship that we face can be, we can come through together as humans. And I think that we strengthen in that process and we care more about each other and connect more in that process. And I think that's what it's all about. And
Hmm.
until I die, I'm going to keep trying to be part of the solution and not just bitching and moaning about everything that's happening. And even if I can only carve out a little sliver where I can contribute in some kind of way, if enough people do that, it heads in a really better direction.
Absolutely.
And so that's where my focus is. That's where I think it's headed. And maybe that's just blind faith, but it's still a way better way of going about reality than the way that a lot of people do, where they just, kind of lay down and say, well, it's all screwed. And so even if it is, I'm going to make the conscious choice to pretend that it's not and act as if it's not and try to contribute where I can, because it's a whole lot more fun to be in that camp of people than
Absolutely,
of the camp that, just decided to just say it's all fucked and why. Why even contribute? So
I'd rather be blind and have faith than see all and be miserable.
yeah. All right, well, delete an app today, text a friend, hang out, and we're going to talk about this topic more, I think. So
Absolutely.
it's all worth it, even if it doesn't seem that way.
Yes. Everything's worth it.